Hi, I'm Andy. This is C# Puzzles, Puzzle 2. Let's try to do something a bit more with the strings and the user inputs. Let's try to use some functions with them, try to take it to the next level. For those of you that are absolute beginners, I just want to kind of try to motivate you. Just try to do this regularly. Doesn't matter what you're learning specifically, but just try to program regularly in your life. Half an hour a day, whatever, whenever you can fit it in. Even if it's an hour a week, just from now on in your life, you're spending X amount of time programming. And just start off with the fundamentals. There's so much to cover. Don't worry about frameworks or other languages. Just pick a language, stick with it, put in the hours, and then it will suddenly start to click, and then all these other terms you hear other programmers talk about will all start to make sense, and you'll be able to use them because you'll have that foundational knowledge. Anyway, this is very, very early on. We're still just putting text on the screen and we're getting the user input. Let's get puzzling. Start off by going to the GitHub repo, the link's in the description. Console Beginner Puzzle 2. Again, we'll be cloning the starter code from the main branch, and then we'll be using this HTTPS link. Using GitHub Desktop. Now, from our previous use of GitHub Desktop, cloning the first puzzle, it remembers all the sort of changes you've made to your original files because it knows where the repo is. You've downloaded the repo onto your local computer, and it kind of monitors that folder. And it's going to display here any changes you've got. Now, you're not going to be uploading anything to my repository, but let's say you had another repository of your own. You could use this to kind of push the code to your repository. And it shows you the changes here. So you can see the green highlighted section and the pluses are the new code that I've added, the puzzle solutions. And the red is the things I've removed. So I've removed the comments here and I've added this code. This is from the previous puzzle. So you can see how much more useful this is compared to the command line. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Go to File, Clone Repository, URL. Copy the repo link. Paste it in there. And just make sure your local path's where you want it to be in the folder in your C drive, and clone it. And you see up here now we're using the puzzle 2, but we also have access to puzzle 1, and that little blue dot just means there's been some changes. But remember, we're not pushing anything. You don't have access to my repo. So okay, we've downloaded that code now, and there it is there. There's our previous code. There's our new stuff. Again, I'll delete this and I'll show you the command line. I'll need to stop showing you the command line in future videos. Again, you'd have to download Git to be able to use the command line. But you would CD to wherever your folder is, change directory to wherever your folder is. What space in between. And then the command is git clone, and would copy the HTTPS file. You might need to let this through your firewall, but there we go. So that's the two ways of cloning the code. If we run this in Visual Studio, just give it a second to load. I'll take you through the puzzles. This time we're kind of staying with the strings, but I want to talk about some functions that we can use with the strings, because we don't need to rewrite all the code in the whole internet every time. People have written code for us and they've saved it as functions, and all we have to do is use those functions. We have to give them inputs and we accept their outputs. So what you'll find as a beginner is if you're writing some code, it's a really good idea to check if it's already been written before. So in this example A, they're using string.join. Now you could go away and you could write code to join variables onto sentences. you could write your own function doing that, but it's already been done and it's bundled with the C# library. So you can just use string.join here in this example. So puzzle A is asking you to do this. Yeah, use string.joins, use multiple .joins. Example B, we're using replace. Again, you don't have to write code to go through everything and replace one node with another. You could, but replace has already been written, so let's just use it. So you have to start sort of memorizing, well, not memorizing, just having a vague idea of what might already be written. AI is great, it will just tell you exactly what functions to use. So don't be afraid to use things like Copilot and AI. It'll just tell you the answer, that's fine. That's what you would do in a real job anyway. In example C, write a program that asks the user to blah, 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 blah. So we're kind of using a lot of the stuff from the first puzzle here, getting inputs, and then we're using join to instead of just putting hard-coded variables in there, we're grabbing the user input, and then we're putting the user input into a sentence. A bit more complicated for the third one. You'll be fine. Again, guys, as always, it's probably a good idea down here to uncomment the puzzles. So if you click run, it will just run the examples, as I've showed you before. So it's going to run example A. What's your favourite colour? Red. What's your second favourite colour? Blue. Your favourite colours are red and blue, blah, blah, blah. So it's just using string.join there. Example B, I get married, had a few kids, paid a few bills, retired to Florida and died. Isn't that true? Isn't that true? I was thinking in Australia it wouldn't be Florida, it would be Queensland. I get married, had a few kids, paid a few bills, retired to Queensland and died, if you're a fellow Australian. Example C, let's join words onto a sentence. Enter a sentence. Hello, if I can type. Enter a word. Andy. Enter another word. Smith, I guess. Hello, Andy Smith. There we go. So that's the examples working. So what you'd want to do is, you'd probably want to comment these out. And uncomment puzzle A, and then go up here and uncomment puzzle A, and then do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do here. I'll just demonstrate to you again that it works. Test ABC. It's only going to run puzzle A this time. Test ABC. Okay guys, so download the code, clone it, work through the puzzles, look at the example. Again, you should always be reading the existing code. That's why I'm giving you examples. I've never really had to go into a project that I'm running the whole thing from the start. I've always been part of a team, or there's always been existing code. Sometimes the code's been existing for 10, 15 years and it's an absolute nightmare. So you have to read quite a lot. So get used to reading the examples and then just play about with it. Learn about join and replace, and remember everything from the previous puzzle. Console read line, console write line. Okay guys, have an attempt at that, and I'll show you the solution in a minute. Well, I hope you took a crack at that. I think it was fairly straightforward. If you get stuck, that's fine, just code along with me. Back at our Git repo, there is a solution branch. If you get stuck and you wanted to check the code, if you cloned this branch, you could just run this to run the whole program, or you can just click in here and click into program, and there's the answer. So either way, that should help you. Let's take a look at the code. Puzzle A. What's your name, baby? Because it's the 1980s on this channel. Write a program that asks, what's your first name, baby? Have the program also ask for your second name, because, you know, we're not a piece of meat. Use string.join to create the final sentence. Your full name is first name and second name. Probably need the dollar symbol there for your string interpolation. Use multiple string.joins to create the final sentence. Okay, so we've kind of got two expected outputs here. Just using string.join a couple of different ways. Remember to have spaces between the strings when you join them. Okay, so let's just copy the sort of prompts and the inputs, save us typing. So it's wanting to ask, what's your first name? And I'll just put in the new line character. And I quite like this little sort of colon, semicolon here, just to kind of signal to the user that they're supposed to enter something. So I guess we'll just call this first name, written in camel case. And yeah, I guess what's your second name? We'll call this second name. So I hope you get this far at least, because it's fairly straightforward. Now, okay, so the first thing we're being asked to do, use string.join to create the final sentence, your full name is, and that's basically the same as this thing here. So we can just copy that and modify it. You'll really notice how much I'm copying and pasting. I know enough of other people on YouTube type these out, but this is why I've given you examples. I spend most of my life copying and pasting. Message string.join. So we want to change this to your full name is. Yep, your full name is. And then we can just, well actually, I probably want to kind of put this inside the string.join, don't I? I can just have string.join and then the space, get rid of these. So in between each of these variables add a space. We can just have text there, and then we can just have first name, second name. Again, I like copying and pasting variable names. It's a habit, simply because I've mistyped variable names in my career thousands of times, and you think it looks okay, and then you go to run it and you don't know what the problem is. So I just copy and paste. It's just easier. If I miss a D or I miss an I, you might not recognize it very quickly. So we could also just do a console write line message. So to me that would probably work. So what's the next thing? Use multiple string.joins to create the final sentence. Name, second name, first name. Okay. So I could use a string.join just to make the name, and then have another string.join to display name and it, I suppose. Yeah, let's do that. Now see, it's the autocomplete's wrong there. It gets close when it's obvious what you want to do. Like it might have got something like this correct because it's very obvious what we're trying to do beforehand. We're prompts and we're getting user input, so it might have guessed, this one correctly, but it's not going to guess this one correctly. So how should we do this? I guess we could do second name first. I could just maybe select it from there. Yeah, second name, first name. So you can also just click here to sort of input the variables. But we don't really just want the space there, we want the comma in between. So that's okay. So in between each of these variables, you can just have a comma. That would do. That would do whatever the user enters a second name, comma, first name. It's just if we had a third one here, that wouldn't work, but that's all we need. So that's fine. We can maybe have another variable called maybe message2. Let's call it message 2 because we're very unique here in our variable names. And then we can just use string.join again. And this time, again, join everything with a space. So we could just use name. Well, give it the input name, this first part here, and then the second half can just be name. I think that would work. So we're using multiple string.joins here, and then we'll just display that. You can kind of see here how I'm keeping the output at the bottom, and I'm kind of keeping the code, the sort of manipulations in the middle, and then the sort of prompts at the top. So it's kind of following a flow here. I want to have like a little output section. In later puzzles, we're going to go into the structure of these things a lot more in depth, but you can kind of see how I'm setting it out. I don't really have, you could have console message up here immediately after what you're doing. Like that, that's fine. But I like to have little sections because in later puzzles and in my personal code, you structure things in a certain way. So I'm just kind of alluding to that there. Okay, so I've got puzzle A down the bottom uncommented. Let's run it. Let's see what happens. What's your first name, baby? Andy. What's your second name? My name's Andy, baby. Your full name is Andy, baby. Name, baby Andy. There we go. That works. That's exactly what they asked for. There's multiple ways of doing this, guys. As long as you got that output, that's fine. The thing about programming is everything's so configurable. There are 1,000 ways to do this. As long as you get the output and you are kind of keeping in line with the sort of style in the above example, that's a pass. You know, that's a pass. Even if you just get the output, if it went to code review and you know your code's not exactly the same as the code that's already in the project, they would just say, hey, you know, change this part, change that part. But they'd be quite happy that you're able to produce a result. Okay, system. So as you type stuff out, you might sort of half type something and autocomplete thinks you're going to select something else and maybe press space and it just throws in a word there, like instead of join it might choose something else. And if that thing's got a dependency, it's going to put the dependency up here. So the fact that that's grayed out means we're not using that dependency. That's just appeared due to me maybe using autocomplete and pressing space or tab accidentally, and then it's filled in that dependency. So we can just get rid of that. Okay, on to the next puzzle. Example B. You're replaceable. Oh, that's depressing. I'm unique. Write a program that asks the user to input a sentence with the word and in it. Replace every occurrence of the word and with the symbol, with the and symbol. Remember to escape the backslashes around and, or around and in quotes, or use verbatim strings. Okay, so we're kind of picking up some of the stuff we learned in the previous puzzle 1. Alright. I'll go down here and I don't need puzzle A running anymore. I'll run puzzle B by uncommenting it. So we've kind of got a prompt here. I'll just paste that in. I want a new line character, and you can kind of see the problem here immediately as we've pasted it in. As I said before, it thinks this is a string, and it thinks this is a string, and it thinks and is code, and it's not code, so we need to escape these backslashes. and now it thinks the whole thing's a string. Put in a new line. I know it seems a bit pedantic that you're doing console write line, and you'll be thinking, well, in the real world, why would I be using console write line? Everything's so advanced, we're not working in console apps anymore. Well, you'd be totally wrong, because I'd use this all the time in debugging. If I've got a program or a module and there's something wrong with it, I will console write line whatever the variable is or whatever the submodule output is. I will use this console write line, or there's another one, console debug. I will use this a lot to troubleshoot the app. So you're never going to get rid of console write line, my friends. You will always be doing this in your career. All right, so input a sentence with the word and in it. You could obviously use verbatim strings here. You could put the and symbol there, and then you wouldn't, the at symbol there, and you wouldn't need these. Well, you actually would, wouldn't you? Well, you could maybe do that. Oh, get rid of it all again. Okay. Replace every occurrence of the word and, so we'll be using this replace. But this, we need to get the user's input. So we can grab this from one of our previous examples, console read line. And we'll just call this input. Yeah, okay, so we're getting the user's input, just a sentence. Hopefully they're going to put the word and in it, because we've got no logic to check. We'll be doing sort of logic that you could check this in later puzzles. Okay, so what do we want to do next? We want to use replace. So maybe just call it result. I'll call a lot of things result. We'll just use our input dot replace. And how do they use it up here? Replacing bills with hookers. Okay, so we'd use the word and then we'd replace it with the and symbol. Forget your line ending there. And then we can just console write line the result, I guess. That would probably do it. It's very simple. I think that would probably work. So the green squiggly line, guys, means it possibly could be null because we've made it a null variable there. If I get rid of that, it'll still remain because technically the user might not input anything and it might continue. So at the moment, you don't know how to get rid of this. I will show you how to get rid of this in later puzzles. Don't worry, we're keeping this very simple just now, but I just want you to know that that green squiggly line means that, hey, we might get a null value in there, and we generally don't like null values unless we explicitly expect a null value. We'll go into it in the future, guys. Just know it's not going to stop the program from executing. Okay, so let's run that. Let's see if it works. Input a sentence with the word and in it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Excellent. The reason I typed that in is I'm learning how to play the guitar, and it's to do with the beats 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then you do it again 1 and 2 in a different chord. So a little insight into my madness. If we run that again, what if we input a sentence with the word and in it? It's fine. It just didn't do anything. Okay, so you kind of have to be aware sometimes, because we're not being too complicated here, sometimes programs will crash if we don't follow the rules. We're not doing any input checking yet. We're not doing any input validation, but that's fine because replace obviously doesn't throw an error if it doesn't match anything. It just continues, so that's fine. It's good to know. All right, on to example C, puzzle C. Let's join words onto a sentence. Please enter a sentence with user input, enter a word, user input, enter another word, user input. And then we're using join to stick them all together. Okay, just a lot more user inputs and just multiple variables inside join, just showing us that we don't need 2, we can use 3 of them. Okay. All right, what's the puzzle? Choose a word to replace. All right, this is going to be a bit more complicated. Write a program that asks the user, please enter a sentence. Then ask the user, which word will we replace? Then ask the user, replace it with what? Okay, this is getting a bit more complicated. Don't output the original sentence with the word replaced. Don't worry if the user enters a word that is not in a sentence. We have not covered loops or error catching yet. Yeah, I was kind of sort of demonstrating that with the last puzzle, but the last puzzle worked. This one, it's very likely the program will break because it's not, the logic won't work. Yeah, and like I said before, don't worry about green squiggly lines. I've not covered null checking yet. So you're getting away with a lot. You're getting away with a lot in this one. Okay, please enter a sentence. Let's get that prompt. Select right line. And I just do new line. Okay, so prompt and the user input, you must be getting really good at these by now. Probably just copy this because we're going to ask a couple of things, aren't we? We're going to ask 3 prompts. And this one we'll call words 1 because we're very original. You'll notice how this is throwing an error because it's the same as an existing variable. You can only have one variable with that name in between the 2 squiggly lines, okay? And the third one, replace it with what? We'll just call this word 2. Okay. You could call this result, we'll call it output. Well, if I could type, that's what we want, sentence, dot replace. And we just want to replace whatever the user's entered as word 1 with word 2, okay? So we're taking the sentence which the user's entered, and then in that sentence we're going to replace whatever the user's entered as word 1 with whatever the user enters as word 2. Now you see how this could be quite complicated for a beginner because it's not immediately clear what the user is going to enter here, and it opens up a whole bag of problems because now the user can enter a whole bunch of stuff that could break our program. Even if we put a lot of checks in here, users can be quite mischievous. They could even be hackers. If you demonstrate a console program to someone that's a bit more advanced than you, the first thing they'll do is try to break it so they can laugh at you. They'll be putting in all sorts of things they know are going to break it. Typing in null is a great one, or typing in SQL commands to try and wreck your database. But we'll cover how to protect yourself in later puzzles as we go through here. Anyway, let's do a console write line, and yeah, there we go. It's guess what I want to do, output. Let's run this and give it a test. Please enter a sentence. A UFO crashed in Roswell. I think Roswell's in New Mexico. Anyway, that'll do. Which word will we replace? The government wants to censor UFO. And well, you know, it's a spaceship, so what will we say? Crashed? We'll say a balloon crashed. People will believe that. Spell balloon right. A balloon crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. There we go, guys. That's the truth. Nothing to see here. So that works fine. I'm actually not sure if the program will crash if the user enters a word not in the sentence. I think I was assuming replace might throw an error, and I don't believe it does. Let's give it a test. Please enter a sentence. Over the fence. Red's not in that sentence. Replace it with what? Blue. The fox jumped over the fence, so it doesn't actually break, so that's good news. I was expecting that to break, but there's probably a whole bunch of stuff you could type in there that would make it break. That's fine. So I would say at the moment, that's everything done. Yeah, so I hope you got this far, and I hope you're playing about with everything. Hope you're enjoying yourself. It's good to kind of get out of tutorial hell and stop following people around and just start reading code and writing your own sort of programs. There's nothing wrong with following other people. In fact, you know, I hope you've done some of the other courses on YouTube and you're using their examples that you can remember in these puzzles, because you can go way above and beyond whatever I'm writing here and just have fun with it. Congrats for getting through puzzle 2. You might be wondering, how's this relevant to my job, Andy? Well, we did really well. We printed some text on the screen, we got some user inputs, we got some variables. We took it a bit further than puzzle 1. But in a real life development job, you would actually be using this. No one would care about your favourite colour or things like that, but what would be useful would be console write line and variables and like the join statement and stuff for debugging. So you'll be working in a large application with your team. It will have hundreds or thousands of lines of code, and you'll be stopping and starting it at various sections, and you'll be using console write line to print out stuff. There's fancy debuggers come with the IDEs, but every programmer I know still uses console write line to print out detailed error messages at some point. Regularly, you're going to do it every day. So that's how it's relevant. Keep on going. It's been fun so far. I'll see you in puzzle 3. And if you're interested, I have another channel as always, Python Puzzles. We do the same puzzle, but in Python. You may as well learn 2 languages at once. Thank you very much.